Blox was once one of the most popular games on Roblox, consistently hitting what was high player counts during certain peaks, numbers that crashed Roblox itself. Nowadays, while still hitting good player counts, an underlying problem slowly becomes more clear. This doesn't mean that the game is becoming less popular. However, it is a problem that most players, regardless of a player's progression, will deal with. Okay, to be honest, it's more than one problem. Each stage of the game will deal with it, and I will provide feedback on what I think would be beneficial to all stages from a player standpoint, while also considering difficulty of development and monetization. Before I explain, many of the problems that I personally have, along with some other players' experiences, will be talked about. None of these players have reached max level except your one and only, but they have been playing for many hours, and one has even made content on it. Also, just remember to not attack or complain to the admins or developers or anyone in general. The Blox development team has been working on updates for a very long time, and this video is to give some complaints in a respectful manner while giving direct feedback.
There are lots of reasons why a player may dislike the game. In fact, disliking certain aspects of games is normal. No game is perfect, and games should not aim for perfection. This doesn't mean this should be ignored, though. Usually, if a certain aspect of a game is disliked, it usually means there are major issues with the game. For example, Clash Royale is disliked due to broken or paid progression in a free game. Fruit battlegrounds and your experience is heavily determined by your luck or by extreme amounts of grinding.
Overall, when these games have problems, players dislike the game. This doesn't mean that they aren't played. This just means that players will have to deal with those problems, and without content creators creating hype for the game, players will become demotivated and eventually quit. For Blox there are many problems you'll deal with, and regardless of your level, aggression, or the amount you spend, you will deal with them. If you're early game or around first or second C, you'll likely deal with the problem of not knowing anything about the game. This is not a major problem as external help is really easy to get. However, for players that don't have friends or never got external help, players had to figure out many things on their own. The reason is the lack of a decent tutorial or guide. While most players will easily get the idea of doing quests and leveling up, things that appear a little bit later, like fruit types and aura, will absolutely confuse players. The solution? Tutorials. While many guides exist that provide more detailed information, a built-in super short tutorial that goes over the basics can help new players quickly. The reason why I recommend short tutorials is to let players learn a bit more on their own. For example, players should understand the basics of fruit types, yet they should be responsible for knowing interactions. This is only to give players an understanding of the game and to not take away from the amazing content creators that make guides, as well as help the game with minimal effort. Once you reach the second C, most players encourage getting Awakened Buddha as soon as possible. Why? It's good. Almost too good for its $1.2 million price. The issue is, if everyone wants a fruit, the demand goes high, very high. This means that if a player never got Buddha throughout the first C and doesn't have a friend or the patience to wait for it to appear in stock, they either need to trade for it or gamble. The issue with that is that, again, the demand for it is really high. This forces players to grind a lot or overpay for the fruit. To make things worse, players don't know what trading values are without external help, which even then can be unreliable. If players want to gamble for the fruit, this brings up a whole nother issue where progression could be locked behind gambling or luck. The most logical answer, which the devs could be working on, is to make Buddha less valuable as a grinding option. The only issue is that increased range is super strong and leveling up fighting styles and swords make Buddha still necessary. Another option is to have fruits be an option for grinding fighting styles or swords. This gives new players options outside of Buddha, which is still really versatile. Blox Roots has 2,800 levels as of this video. Assuming you get 1 level per quest and kill 8 mobs, to get to max level, assuming you aren't using 2 times XP, you will need to kill 22,400 mobs. This may not seem like a lot, but when you add up the times you get interrupted, the travel time it takes to fight each mob, it takes a very long time to get to max level. To make things worse, as new updates happen, more levels are added, increasing the amount of time it takes. Some games can get away with long grinds as long as the gameplay isn't one single repetitive task and has a lot of variety. The issue is, Blox Roots does not have that variety of tasks. In order to level up, you'll need to talk to someone, beat up mobs or a boss, then get XP. There is nothing else to it. Leveling up only gives you few stats, and the only goal is either the next quest or max level. The solution I suggest is to make Sea Beasts more mainstream in leveling instead of a special optional fight. When grinding mobs, players only use M1. If Sea Beasts become a more core part of leveling up, it'll allow abilities to be used mainly for leveling up instead of only for PvP. So, well, now you're max level. You finally reached permanent endgame content. What is there? Nothing. Well, I guess it's your fault for getting to max level so fast. The only realistic options are PvP, Leviathan hunting, and dungeons. I'll get to dungeon in a moment, but in terms of PvP, I guess there's enough. It's not very good though, and we'll get to that in a moment. If you really want something to do that isn't dungeons, you could beat up some sea beasts or leviathans. Problem is that there's nothing else. Fishing, who cares? Mastery, you might as well just use an auto clicker. The most recent edition of Dungeons is also not enough. After playing it for a bit, it was a great concept. Sadly, it might not be enough. This goes back to the lack of content and diverse gameplay in general. Leveling up is a simple task, and when you reach max level, PvE is just as plain. This demotivates late and endgame players, and the solution is very simple. In the future, focus on either balancing PvP or more permanent content. This doesn't need to be a big change, just something that endgame players can do instead of waiting for another update. It also opens a door for more monetization with more content. Going back to dungeons, this is an amazing first step, and I wish to see more like it in the future. Possibly building on dungeons could solve this problem completely. Going back to PvP, there's still a very big problem if you do choose to do PvP. That being power creep. Power creep is a simple idea where new content is stronger than older content. Of course, a small amount of power creep is needed for a game, as it keeps players excited for new fruits, which keeps the game alive. It becomes a problem when new fruits or rework fruits become much too powerful. The Dragon Rework changed the meta from a variety of sets to only East or West Dragon. As new revamped fruits roll out, their strength becomes too great and the balance of the game is completely thrown out the window. It reaches a point where it only takes a few abilities to completely beat someone up, and eventually, fruits will be more spammy and require less skill. In a monetization standpoint, this is amazing. Roll out fruits, people buy, make money. Almost like another game. From a game design standpoint, it's horrible. More advanced and expensive fruits should be much more stronger, yet require more tactics and skill to use. The more difficult to the fruit is to use, the better it should be. Sadly, with the dragon fruit rework, the damage is done. Without substantial nerfs, the game's balance is completely thrown out, and many players who play PvP will move on. So what does this mean? Blox Roots is still a great game. I won't deny the fact that it still gets great player counts. However, the game now has a lack of content is now going to be much more unbalanced with every update. New players will need external help, and leveling will remain a tedious task. There's just too much problems that I and others have dealt with. That's why today is my last Blox Roots video. This doesn't mean that I'm quitting content creation. I'll still be sticking to my yearly uploads. But from now on, I'll rarely make Blox content, if any. It's not a game that I consistently play anyways, and I find it's much easier that I make videos like these. One more message before I go. I'd like to thank everyone who voiced this video, as the video would have been much worse without it. I'd also like to thank you for watching.